Learning sponsors. Year of learning Gail and Leslie Kaplan in memory of their parents, Mushka Shmunza Bad Yosef Chaim Bachava. Hanan ben Moshe Eliezer Bachana, Peshpat Shmuel Yosef Halevi Tzipora, Isa ben Yoel Moshe Cohen Bachana, Rex with Friends of Gladys Sherman, Gutta Bad Meir, Michael Klein and Friends of Judah Klein, Yehuda Tzvi Ben Chaim, Marsha Braun, in memory of her husband, Rav Shmuel ben Shmuel, Friends and family of Arthur Ridholtz, Mordechai Yudel ben Baruch Leib Cohen, Friends and family of Siggy Bessler, Shalom Shraga ben Dov, Friends of Marvin Weinstein, Mordechai Ozer ben Yisrael Aaron, Sarah Alpert, in memory of her husband, Rav Tzvi Lipa ben Hillel, Rexford Friends of Maddie Friedman, Mendel Miriam Bat Kalman Ruvain, Bella and David Adler, in memory of her father, Yahu ben Yosef Kohen, Friends of Honey Chaifetz, Chana Shoshana Bat Yosef. Month of Learning by Susan and Reuven Podolsky, in memory of her mother, Chai Bat Avram Dov, Michael and Judith Koretsky, in memory of his mother, Rachel Bat Avraham, Jack Gilman, in memory of his brother, Zev Yosef Ben Yitzchak, Karen and Melvin Haller, in memory of her father, Yosef Eliezer Ben Tzvi Hirsch, Barbara Stern, in memory of her brother, Yisrael Avram Ben David Modcha, Sonia and Bernie Kutz, in memory of their dear friend, Honey Chaifetz. She touched many lives in the best way. A week of learning by Andrew and Stephanie Becker, in memory of his mother, Chayaleh Bad Yehoshua, and in honor of his friend, Rabbi Mordechai Eskovitz, who said Kaddish for her. Marsha and Gary Schrager, in memory of her father, Shmuel Ben Meir, Malka and Rabbi David, Dr. Yankee Honig, in memory of her aunt, Emma Ekelbat Shimon. Jimmy Shelley Dubin and Stanley Herlick made a day of learning in memory of their friend, Honey Chaifetz. Next week, till later in the week, name is Shemus Heaven Aliyah, Frank Rafia, Velti Yeshua Shem Atliyah, Chol B'nai Yisrael, a good bench. Your 1, 2, 3 lines from the top on Tzadi Hey Amid Aleph. So we continue from yesterday. We have a problem, and that's this. There are three parshios when it comes to the Shomer. The first one mentions negligence, and it mentions paying double for a false claim of theft. The second parsha mentions obligation for theft and loss, and non-obligation for three types of accidents. The third one mentions obligation for two types of accidents, and a non-obligation for the boss working. So we have all kinds of anomalies, between the differences between the parshios, and we've been seeing to what degree can we compare and contrast, or do we compare and contrast with them? We have a problem with it. When I said how do I know that a borrower has to pay for theft and loss? We know him. Where do I know it from? You say, listen, you learn that he has to pay for the animal's limb being broken by accident, or if it's dying by accident. So we say therefore what? So you'll say it makes sense. You also have to pay for theft and loss. They say, listen, baby, you know why the borrower has to pay? Because the owner can once the thing's dead or broken, it's not like the owner can trouble himself and get it back. He can't get it back; it's gone. Okay, but by theft and loss, the owner really has recourse. He can go and find it to get the stuff back. Okay, so maybe the borrower is not obligated. Omar B'gnei Levet, what do they say about theft and loss? The owner can go get it back. So therefore, how do I know that the borrower is obligated on theft and loss? It's hard to tell, like the Bryce said that way. Nishbar Mays, okay, it says by a borrower, if the animal breaks its limb or dies and the husband and the owner is not looking for him, ainly Mesa. I only know what? I only know the case of what? Of breaking a limb and dying. How do I know that also the borrower is obligated also to loss? Marta Kavachomer. How can anybody read it? It's a Kavachomer. I can know what? The Masha Mesa. If a paid watchman who is exempt on a limb breaking and on death, which is accidental, I would be able to if that person is obligated on theft and loss, theft and loss. Shoel, when it comes to a borrower, a borrower is obligated on these accidents or a limb breaking and a dying and with the they all know it's clear. So probably so all the more so he'd be obligated for theft and loss. And that is a Kavachomer that there's no challenge. Now, whenever a person says something, you have to pick up on it. There's a reason for it. When a person says, well, that thing that I just did can't be challenged, obviously he anticipates that you're going to challenge him. He's telling you the challenge you're going to challenge.
There's no challenge. Otherwise, you don't say anything. There's no challenge. He's saying he anticipates the challenge. We have to know what is the challenge that he anticipated that he rejects. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's the same thing. True is also true is a paper. Okay. No, no, no. True is the language. True is the language for paper. We say there's an argument of true. It means there's no paper. Mine love true. What do you mean there's no paper over here? Why do you tell me that? So you might find it look like that's a kasha this cover from. How do I not gonna cover from? I show the light is heavy or the heavy's light. Mala shomer stuff or you want to tell me what shomer stuff you want to tell me the light case has a hard answer not to. What do you mean shomer stuff is not a light case? It's she came to shop just really careful. Don't tell us what to live in the museum. It's that you know that what the paid watchman. Let's say he claims that it was stolen by an armed thief. So that's what. So even though what if he claimed it was stolen by a regular thief, he can only pay and he can't get out of it. He can't get out of it. If he swears it was stolen by an armed thief, so he can swear and get out of it, but it turns out that he's a liar. He'll have to pay double. Now, why is that? Why is that? Because the problem with an armed thief is that he's kind of both. He's kind of like a thief, and he's kind of like an accident. In other words, he's not a thief. You understand? He's not because he takes it directly from the hand of the person he's stealing it from. On the other hand, he's like a regular thief because he hides from everybody else. So you don't know what he is. Okay, so you say what's over there, even though what by a regular thief he has no recourse. He can't claim that it's a thief and he's out. If he claims it's an armed thief, he can be out. He pays double. So okay, and that we don't find. There is no such thing. So ironically, a paid watchman has a more severe law than a borrower. Why? Because a borrower never ends up paying double for theft. It can't happen. But what a paid watchman can end up paying double. Okay, even so, even though in that respect you're right, you want to claim that the paid watchman has a more severe law than the borrower. It's not true. Why? Karna de show the fact that the borrower has no recourse whatsoever by any kind of theft, and he must always pay the the principal, and he can't get out. Adifa, that's considered more severe. Even though what you're right, he never comes to the very severe din of paying double. But the fact that he has no recourse to ever not pay the principal is always considered more severe. Like we said yesterday, then it's more severe than a case where you do pay double but have recourse at the beginning. So therefore, what we still say that so you can't say that a paid watchman is more severe than a borrower. By same alternative, like say to like, okay, you're right. He says it is a good point. You have a good point. In theory, you want to say what that a paid watchman is more severe because he can end up paying double, whereas the borrower cannot. But he answers what he says is not true. What you said, why? In theory, that would be a good point. But what? At least the museum Gosling, because this opinion holds that an armed thief is a Goslin. He's not considered a regular thief, and therefore there is no rule of double payment, even if he lied. Even if he lied. Ashbeth on the field. Okay, good. Very good. He found people that the borrower has to pay for theft and loss. So he says, with car, but how about the other way? How do I know that if the owner works for him and he claims theft or loss, that he's exempt? Because theft or loss is not written by a borrower. So how do I know that the exemption of the borrower when the boss is from payment when the owner works for him? How do I know he's exempt on theft and loss? If he came in there, we should may say, okay, look again, we're learning from the fact if he's exempt when the boss works for him when the limb is broken or it dies, which is a big accidental, I'll say okay, so I'll say everything certain for sure. Over here by theft and loss, I said no, there's no comparison. Malishur may say why? Because it makes sense. We should be exempt. Okay, why is the Torah exempting him? She can't own it. When it comes to broken limb or for death, since it's an accident, so of course I can see why the Torah wants to exempt him because even though he's obligated an accident, but he's more inclined to be. We're more inclined to be exempted from an accident if the boss is working with him. Okay, but when it comes to theft or loss, which are really not accidents, maybe we should be obligated. So you can't compare theft and loss to what accidents are the lenient. Ella, what if you say Gomar Shomer, Gomar Mishomer, if you say what? He learns it from a Shomer Safa. Just like what? Just like the Shomer Safa, just like the paid watchman. If the owner is working for him, he's exempt from theft and loss. So too is the borrower who learned theft and loss from the paid watchman exempt from theft and loss. I the Shomer Safa we know get out of here. We say, how did you know? Who told you that a paid watchman is exempt on theft and loss when the owner works for him? The second chapter about a paid watchman doesn't say anything about the guy working for him. How'd you get that in there? The answer is Gemire. Okay, he says Gemire for you, the show myself, and the show. Number one, I learned the obligations of a paid watchman from the obligations of a of a baller. Malham, the Balam Putter, just like later that he's exempt from his obligation. Okay, when the owner works for him. Afkan the Balam Putter. Also here, what is that? He's exempt from his obligations when the owner is working there. I began my Gemara 1 second. How did you learn one from the other? Even Mematzin, if you want to do it by simple comparison, what the cases that are legally identical have identical laws. So I could show you that they're not legally identical. I could find you this comparison. If they're parchinim, like we learned earlier, that what? Shekanonis, there's no comparison. Sure, we could say, well, of course you should be more lenient by a borrower. Since you made him so obligated, he's obligated on accidents. So we tend to be lenient when it comes with the owner work for him. Okay, but when it comes to theft, when it comes to theft and loss, which is he's not obligated on accidents, why should we be lenient when the boss is with him? Amar Christ is yet to say the key Yisham. This is the key, and keep this in mind. We'll go over this for a while. Chapter 1, the unpaid one. Chapter 2, the paid one. Chapter 3, the borrower. Chapter 3 is introduced with above and. This is the chi yishal, and when a guy will borrow, above must be yishal. So you know, add at the beginning, it's a continuation. So really what the and unifies paragraph 2, chapter 2, and chapter 3, and therefore what? And it's a continuation. But Yomad, Elyon, Mitapton, so I can learn what's above from what's below, because it's united as a hekesh by one thing, and therefore, so just like above, you're exempt when the boss works for you on accident. So below, by the chapter 2, by a paid watchman, he's exempt on theft and loss when the owner works for him. 1 second. Did you make this comparison? What are you kidding? Isn't it different being lenient on an accident than being lenient on theft and loss? Yeah, but you're right. But remember, hekesh, a textual comparison, is not subject to the laws of Kal V'chomer. It's not subject to the rules of what of a Mematzinu. Comparisons, logical comparisons, are subject to what to being discompared. But a hekesh is immune. When I learn from hekesh, I don't discompare. God said these are compared. I don't care what you think. Does that make a difference? So by learning from hekesh, I overcome any discomparison. I told you for years when I wish you could have seen when I first met my Rebbe. I think for the first 3 years, there's nothing we said that was ever true. Nothing. There's not everything we said, he destroyed. Every word. The first couple of years. He would give in. But first 3 years, he destroyed everything. So the thing is what? And he would say over and over again, if you want to say something, just say it. He says, don't make a comparison. I'm gonna knock you off. If you make a comparison, I'm gonna knock you off. Don't make any comparisons. Say what you want to say. You understand? You only go to comparison when you're desperate. When you're desperate, you go to comparisons. Self-evidence is so much better than comparisons. You understand? So what happens is, so all things like Kavachomer, Mematzinu, all comparisons, legal comparisons, is something to be discompared. All you need is a smart person. They'll always discompare. It's not that hard. Okay, but a hekesh is where God forces the issue. A hekesh means it's placed in an apposition. They can have a hekesh in a particular sentence. You know, two things are placed in apposition in a sentence, or like over here, where there's a textual apposition by virtue of the fact here we're using the above to put the two things are together, and it's not subject to this comparison. I said, now we're in business, and now we know the law. I said, now we know the law of exemption when the boss works for him by a paid watchman, because we learned it by contextual comparison, which cannot be discompared. Ivy, cut the shomer so far. Okay, lo gomer. Okay, but what? But still, how do I know? But I still didn't learn by a borrower from an unpaid watchman. An unpaid watchman that is exempt on theft and loss. Okay, theft and loss when the owner's with them. But lo gomer, but I can't learn that to the borrower. Okay, by comparison, by comparison, I can't compare a borrower to an unpaid watchman because I can ask, look, when it comes to what, you can't compare because a paid watchman is much lenient. You can't put the Bishur Mesa. He's exempt on accidents, a broken limb, and death. Tomer, how can you say what? A show is going to get the same leniency that a show is also going to be exempt on theft and loss when the boss is working, maybe not only the borrower. Okay, because since he's obligated, since the case of borrowing is much more severe, the leniency that you just derived, ironically, the leniency that you derived by a paid watchman from a borrower, you can't transfer to a borrower. Why? Because the borrower is more severe. Okay, remember the transfer was done by Hekesh. Now you want to compare by legal comparison, it doesn't work. Elo, Geneva, Veda, Bashola, Kiyuba, like slow down. How do you know? Let's start again. How do you know that theft and loss are obligated? Period. How do you know that a borrower has to pay for theft and loss? The Gomer Mishomer Socher. We learn from Mishomer Socher by Kal V'chomer. Okay, which is what? Which is if the unpaid watchman. Remember, theft and loss is not written by a borrower. So you say, well, if a paid watchman is obligated on theft and loss, even though he's not obligated on accidents, certainly a borrower who is obligated on accidents is obligated on theft and loss. But then one second, when you learn from Kal V'chomer, what's the rule? You cannot have a rule. Dio says what? You can't have a more severe law in the derivation than you have from the source that it was derived from. Well, one second. In the source that it's derived from, it's the paid watchman. Is the paid watchman who's obligated on theft and loss? Is he obligated when the boss works for him? No, we learned it from the above by contextual comparison. Well, then if you're going to learn from a Kal V'chomer, from an unpaid watchman to a borrower that he's obligated on theft and loss, he can't be more obligated on theft and loss than what? Than the paid watchman. And therefore what? He also has to be exempt, just like the paid watchman is exempt on when the boss is working for him. Also, the borrower has to be exempt on theft and loss, which is learned from the unpaid watchman, which learned from the borrower that when the boss works for him, he is exempt. Why dialogue? Then yes, we need him. He says, okay, because we're okay. But how do I? So therefore, what I learned? Okay, I learned from the Shomer Socha, and I say dio. Just like now, we figured out a contextual comparison that the theft and loss of a paid watchman, he's exempt from the boss works for him. Also, theft and loss by the borrower, where it's not written at all, since I learned from him, it's also exempt when what? When the boss is working. That's very nice going to people who learn dio. Let's say that, but doesn't say dio, which we learned earlier. Michael, remember what he's going to say. So we have to remember because this has to work according to all opinions. Again, because it says, and if you will born. Chapter 3 begins with a Vav. Vav adds to the second. I learned the part above, the paid watchman, from the borrower, from the lower part. I also learned what? The borrower, the below part, the borrower, from the paid watchman. And therefore what? And therefore what? So just like the what? So therefore what? Just like the paid watchman is exempt from theft and loss when the boss works for him, the owner works for him. Also, too, a borrower is exempt from theft and loss when the boss is working for him. Now, very good. Now, okay. Now let me ask a question. Let me ask you a new question. Remember, the whole idea of the owner working for him is really mentioned where only in chapter 3 by a borrower. We got it down to chapter 2 by doing by the above. Let me ask you a question. What about chapter 1? Where does it talk about negligence? Only in chapter 1. Only by a paid watchman. It's all called never passion. So the whole idea of being obligated for the negligence, okay, is only by the unpaid watchman. Now, one second. Where did I extend the idea of an exemption when the boss is working for the watchman? I extended it from chapter 3 to chapter 2 with a vav. Did I have an extension to chapter 1? So let me ask you a question. When it comes to laws of negligence, is there any exemption from negligence if the boss is working for him? It makes sense now, doesn't it? Why? Other things, okay, there's reason to be exempt. But over here, he's negligent. Why should we exempt the boss working for him? So it doesn't. So is with negligence, which is in chapter 1, exempted in any case by the boss working for the watchman. So it comes down to what the obligation for negligence when the owner works for him. What's the law? So pligi bar Ravacha Ravina. There's an argument for Ravacha Ravina. We don't say you. One says he's obligated. You're right. There's no exemption. But one says he's exempt. Just like watchman exempt for theft and loss when the owner works for them. Just like watchman exempt for accidents when the owner works for them. Also watchman exempt for what? For negligence when the owner works for them. The one who says what he's obligated, there is no exemption. Because he's the opinion mikra nidrash lefanav. Okay, so you're able to what? When you use that vav to extend backwards, you can extend it back one chapter below lefanav, but not 2 chapters back. Hilkach, therefore, in Bala Vima, when the pasuk said by borrower that if the owner works for him is exempt, it's not written about the unpaid watchman. It's written about the borrower. It's written about the paid watchman. But the unique obligation, which is only mentioned where it's even though everybody has it, but it's only mentioned where it's only mentioned by the unpaid watchman. We never extended the exemption back to there. Okay, 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 and what? And exemption and negligence, like I just told you, is not written in chapter 2 and chapter 3 by the paid watchman and by the borrower. Therefore, what? Okay, so now 1 second. So now I got a big problem. What am I going to do? So how do I know in general, first of all, how do I know that a paid watchman and a borrower are obligated for negligence? Maybe it doesn't make sense, but say, how do I know? Maybe a borrower is obligated on theft, loss, accidents, and the paid watchman is obligated on theft and loss and accidents. And none of the two of them are obligated on what? On negligence. What do you mean? Get out of here. I easily can say what that a paid watchman and a borrower are obligated on negligence by simple kal v'chomer. What if an unpaid watchman is not obligated on theft and not obligated on accidents has to pay for negligence. Certainly, what a paid watchman is obligated on theft and an unpaid watchman is obligated even on accidents has to pay for what negligence. My time. What's the reason? Okay. Why is that? And it says what? And when it says what? And when it says if the owner works for me doesn't pay, okay, okay. When it's written over there, if the owner works for them, he's exempt. It's talking about what? The kasibu behedu it's only on those things of exemptions that are in them explicitly. So explicitly in the last two chapters are theft and loss and are accidents. Okay, and therefore what? So now, for sure, I know but the exemption is only there. The one who says that you're exempt even for what? Even for negligence holds that the vav that the comparison that pushed you back from chapter 3 to chapter 2 goes to chapter 1. It goes 2 chapters back. So therefore, even negligence you're exempt. The chiksiv in bala emo ashomafino. And therefore, when it said if the owner is working for him that he's exempt, it's even talking about an unpaid watchman. Okay, Tanan. So now we're in this. We did it. Tanan. Ashoel apara. Okay, Ashoel apara. So we had two opinions. One opinion is to go back to and exempt the unpaid watchman, exempt the person on negligence. And one says go back only one, and we can never exempt the watchman for negligence, even if the boss is working. Tanam, we learned now remember, we learned in our Mishnah, if a guy borrows a cow, and he borrowed the boss with him to work at the same time, okay, or if he borrowed a cow and he rented the owner to work with him, okay, or let's say he borrowed the boss, or he rented them, the boss. And then he rented the cow, he borrowed the cow. In all those cases, the boss is working for him when he makes the transaction. Apartment and the cow dies. Potter, he's exempt in all those cases. Now we said what? You notice what that whole law that you told me of the law that you told me about being exempt when the boss is working. You only told me about the bar. He didn't tell me about an unpaid watchman. I listen. What do you mean? What does that prove? The time is Shomer Sachar. Okay, Shomer Sachar. Okay, wait 1 second. But the Mishnah also didn't mention a paid watchman. So you see that it's not adopted. The Mishnah haven't even talking there, but it's not coming to exclude an unpaid watchman. Because also even you would have to admit excluding a paid watchman, which everybody agrees is exempt. Okay, okay, don't worry. Says so you have to say what. Kana, Milsa, the So the Mishnah was just learning. It was learning the exemption where it's written explicitly by the borrower. Okay, and Katani. Okay, and therefore what? That should be drasha. So we're talking about what when it said when it said pardon. So the answer. I'm sorry. I didn't read. I just misread it. So the answer is, therefore, the answer is what? Milsa, okay, this see the hadja, things that were written explicitly. In other words, where it's written explicitly that he's exempt when the boss works for him by the borrower. Katani, that's what it taught in the Mishnah. the Acha Midrasha, the fact that what that he's exempt when the boss works for him, that's not explicit. I only learn it by comparisons. Loktani, namely both for what? Both for the unpaid watchman and for the what? And for the both for the paid watchman and the unpaid watchman. So don't ask me a kasha. And the fact that he didn't mention the unpaid watchman must be what? There's no exemption by Shia. No, because I have the same kasha by a paid watchman. The answer is it only mentioned where it was explicit by the paid by the borrower. And I could say he learns to both the unpaid watchman and to the paid watchman. Tashma, get on this your kasha. You told me if you borrow it and you borrow the owner with the cow. You rented the cow and you rented the owner with it. Shala, you borrowed the cow and you rented the owner with it. You borrowed, you rented the cow and you borrowed the owner with it. This can be gigantic in 2 minutes. Even though the boss is working someplace else, he's not even working there where the cow is. You're based on the cow dies, potter, he's exempt. Sabrua, now they analyze this price with it's interesting language. How money? Who's this according to? Says Rabbi Yehudi. This must be Rabbi Yehuda who said what? It must be what? This must be Rabbi Yehuda who held what? That a borrower has the same rule as a paid one. That a renter. A renter has the same rule as a paid watchman because they compared the renter and the paid watchman. Okay. Okay. The high Tana, we see clearly what the Tana Kotani Milsa Dr. Joshua. This Tana is learning things that come from a Joshua because he's including the paid watchman. Okay, and the paid watchman, I only learned his exemption when the boss is working from the borrower. And so now you can't use the excuse, oh, you know why he left out an unpaid watch? Because he's not learning things that come from comparison. He learned something that came from comparison. What? Namely what? The exemption of a paid watchman, or the renter when the boss is working. When the boss is working, and he left out a unpaid watchman. Now for sure it's on purpose. There's no excuse for not doing. Must be what? Must be the halacha. Never went back 2 chapters. Akasha to the Manda Amar, who says that we go back 2 chapters and exempt even negligence. When I said, get out of here. He says, money with Meir. He says, that is not Rabbi Meir. He says, Meir, the Amar, yeah, this is Rabbi Meir. Don't tell me it's Rabbi Meir. He says, Meir, that price is Rabbi Meir. The Amar, he holds what? That a renter is like a borrower. Okay, and therefore what? When it taught what a renter, it's really teaching what? By definition, it's teaching a borrower. Who I did the shomer sachar, and therefore the same rule applies also by what? Also by a paid watchman. So you got it in. So if I hold that it's a mayor, when you say renter, you're saying the equivalent of saying what? An unpaid watchman. So you went back 2 chapters, okay? By saying alternatively, I can still defend the guy back 2 chapters like this, and I can say what? I could just reverse the opinions like we learned earlier. The opinion holds what? How does a renter pay? Rabbi Meir says it's what? It's like a paid watchman. Yehuda says like a shomatinam. So I could say to you what? That really this is that Rabbi Yehuda holds. And when Rabbi Yehuda says that the renter is exempt, he by definition is saying what? He's saying that a unpaid watchman is exempt because renter equals unpaid watchman. I'm Rav Nuna. Now we have a tremendous problem. Does the exemption of the boss working for the watchman? Does he have to be working with the same work that the watched item is working? If he lends him a cow, to be exempt for the boss, if the cows are plowing, does the boss have to put in plowing? No. He borrowed the cow. The cow's plowing, and the boss is drilling diamonds for him. Does that work? So okay. So we're gonna see. Okay, so now the borrower is going to be obligated, even if the boss is working for him. You have to have the cow, and the boss is there plowing with it. Plowing together. Chamor, he borrowed the donkey, and the boss himself is pushing the donkey along. Okay, and that's one. So it sounds like what you have to be doing the same job. It looks like it. And furthermore, what the boss has to be working from the original inception of the borrowing until the actual accident. He has to be all through it. Yeah, so therefore, there's a lot of requirements to be exempt. Alma Kasarasi, see Rav Nuna hold Balavimo Akula Milsa Mashma. When it says that the boss is with him, it's the whole transaction from beginning to from the inception until the accident. Masi Rabba. So one second, Rabba says, "What are you talking about? How can you tell me that he has to be working the same job?" Shala, we learned in a brisa above. We saw it clearly. I pointed it out then. He says, "V'shal bala imo." He said, "What if he borrowed the boss together with the animal? Schara, okay, shala v'shal bala imo. He borrowed the animal, borrowed the boss with it. Schara v'shal bala imo. He rented it and he rented the boss with it. Schara v'shal bala imo. He rented it and he borrowed the boss with it. Shala, he borrowed it v'shal bala imo and he rented the boss with it. Afal pisha bailim osim malach b'ma'achir. You said explicitly in the brisa, even though the boss is working some other place, or makes the animal dies, Potter, he's still exempt. My love. So he said, what's he doing someplace else? Malach acheres must be doing a different job. If the animal's over here plowing someplace else, he's not plowing. No, it means he's in a different place, still doing the same job. How can that be? How can that be? How can he be in the same place doing the same job? We'll see. Jeez, he's a few feet ahead, clearing the pathway. We'll see. Halamai mukam out there, they'll come around. What does it mean? What does it mean he's in a different place? No, he's in a physically few feet different place doing the same job as the cow. The Hammurabi was like, he's busy loosening up the ground, chopping up the ground to make it easier for the cow to plow. So he is really what? He is a cow adjunct. Okay? Well, I'm going to say, yeah. So therefore, but really, so don't worry. So we can still defend Rav Amnuna that the exemption only applies with two caveats. One, that he's doing the same job as the object. Yeah, and number two, that he's in the employ from the beginning to end. I'm going to say for Agaba in a second. The same brisa, which we didn't see yet, afterwards talks about being together with the animal. Reisha b'mlachacher. So it has to be what? At the beginning, in order to have any novelty, has to be talking about a different job. Why? Because it says safer. The same brisa goes on and says, Shala, if he borrowed it, if he first borrowed the animal and then only borrowed the boss. Schara, he rented the animal, and then he only rented the boss. Even though this is so not exempt that even if the boss is mamish there plowing right next to it, Umeis and it dies chayiv, he's still obligated. Why? Because remember, because the boss wasn't in the employ at the beginning of the deal. So since the end is talking about what being together in the same job, the beginning must be talking about being apart in a different job, right? So one is saying what? When he's exempt, when he's obligated when he's close, and when he's exempt even when he is doing a different job. So Kasha to Rav Nuna, Amrei says, nah. To defend Rav Nuna said, Reisha v'seifa no. They're both talking about the same job. So why did you change the language? They're both in both the cases he's there. And when he's far away, he's doing the same job. When he's close to the show, Reisha v'usa kamashman. So what was the novel point of the first part? The first part teaches me a novel point. The sefer v'usa kamashman. The end part teaches me a novel point. But both of them are talking about the same job. Reisha v'usa kamashman. The first part tells me a novel point, even though it's the same job. The Afal Gav, the Lama Gaba, that if he's doing the same job, even though he's not next to it, he's still exempt. The watchman. But he's still, even as long as he's in the same job, even not with him, it's still considered to be together with him. Okay? So therefore, as long as the owners are working for the guy at the time of the borrowing, part of the guy's exempt. So even though it's not in the same place, so long as it's doing the same job, he's still exempt. The safer and the end is telling me also chiddush, even though it's the same job. The avagav dal gaba, that what when you're not exempt, even if you're right next to it, okay, even right next to it, and even though you're doing the same job, it doesn't matter. Since he wasn't working for him at the moment of the inception of the bar and chayiv, the watchman is still obligated. This is high mind. I'm sorry. He says. The way you answer me is not an answer. Yeah, because the change in language demands a more novel point. If you said like we said, the first part uses a different language to tell me what he's doing a different job, and what he is still exempt. And the safe is telling me that even though he's doing the same job, he's still obligated. That is a novel point. That's good. That flies. He says, but the way you're going to say Rachel is safer. Both the beginning and the end are talking about him doing the same job. And one is what? He's a few feet ahead, one he's not. My Ravusa, what's the big deal? I divide the Basmalacha. They're both the same work. Being the same work doesn't justify such a radical change in language. Okay, and it makes no difference. Okay, whether it's a few feet ahead or not. Okay, therefore, what? Vote. And another reason why I also reject it and really want to say against Rav Amnuna, that what? That he's doing that a different job is okay. Because we learned in a brisa. From what it says that if the boss is with him, the worker is working with him, the watchman doesn't pay. So certainly, it's a simple. I don't need anybody to tell me to spell out that if the boss is not working for him, that he pays. So then why does the Torah have to go out and spell out? If you told me that the boss works for me, he's exempt. Obviously, if the boss doesn't work for him, he pays. Why'd you tell me the boss doesn't work for him, he pays? Why'd you repeat it? Hashem, to teach you, if he was there at the time of borrowing, that he doesn't have to be with them. What? At the time that it actually had the accident, the accident of breaking limb or dying. Okay, but if he was with him, as long as you're with him exact moment, one second. Okay, okay, and if he was with him at the time but even if he was with him at the time of the accident, he still has to have been there from the time of the inception. So you see what? So we see one, we knocked out Rav Amnuna on what? On lack of novelty. On point one, we knocked him out on lack of novelty. And point two, we knocked out because of a Bryce that explicitly says that it's sufficient and necessary, both sufficient and necessary, that worked for him at the time of the borrowing. One, it's sufficient, and he doesn't have to be at the time of the accident. And it's necessary that even if he's with him at the time of the accident, it's still necessary for him to have been with him at the time of the inception of the borrowing. So therefore, we knocked out both. And here's one more knockout for the Tanyidin who learned another brisa. It's the same point said differently. For the fact that said if the owner's with me, I have to pay. In fact, it said, what if the boss is not with him, he has to pay. And I don't know if the boss is with him, then he doesn't have to pay. So why do you have to repeat if the owner's with him, he doesn't have to pay? To tell me it's the reverse learning. The teacher, once the animal left the ownership of the lender, if 1 second that it got out of his shoes into the watchman while the owner was working for him, Mason and Dodge is exempt. It's exactly the same point that all you need and you must have. It's sufficient and necessary, but it's also sufficient for the boss to be working at the moment of the borrowing. So therefore, what therefore we have a knockout blow to Rav Amnuna, and both halachas are against him. Number one, as long as the guy's working, he doesn't have to be working the same job as the borrowed object. And number two, he only has to be at the time of the borrowing and must be at the time of the borrowing. And we'll call that a day. A Shavua Tov, a good sweet. Thank God. How was the simple? That's good. That's good. That's great. That's the biggest simple anyway. Beautiful. Beautiful.